Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 9 of the Over the Boards podcast. It's a beautiful February 15th. Sun is shining once again. We're blessed for 2 weeks in a row of beautiful sunshine after some awful snow. I'm joined with Josh McKinnon, as usual.
Hey, how's it going?
We're good. We got a long-ass list of topics to talk about today, but the crappy part of it is most of it's about injuries, basically. And we'll start with the fresh news right away. We got 2 season-ending injuries. Brian Little of the Winnipeg Jets for starters, and Erik Karlsson is the second one. I'm not surprised about Erik Karlsson, if we're being honest, because he's been brutal all year. It's excuse me. He needs surgery to repair his thumb. And then Brian Little is out for the year after taking that shot to the ear. He has an eardrum issue. So he's out for the rest of the year. And we'll talk about those before we get into the rest of them. But the Erik Karlsson one isn't really a big deal because, like we've been saying pretty much every episode, I'm pretty sure the Sharks are out of it. They're done. They've had just an awful year. They just need to regroup and go from there. The Little one is interesting because last episode we spoke a lot about the excuse me, about the situation with the cap now that Dustin Byfuglien's contract is gone. Well, will be gone, and now you have all of Brian Little's money off the books. So now you have a ton of money to play with. So
I think right now they're in the 20s for cap space.
When Byfuglien goes through and with him on LTIR now, I don't even know. Like, this is so sudden. Like, it just came out as we were about to record. I didn't even think of any options of what they're gonna do now, because they can now pick up a D and they can pick up a top forward if they want one. And they could probably pick up a mid-tier defenseman or somebody.
They're definitely big players now in the buyer's market. There's no doubt about it.
They definitely have a lot of money now. I wouldn't be, just right off the top of my head, I wouldn't even be surprised if Kovalchuk was right up their alley.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but just thinking about it, I just think an instant a Kovalchuk. Maybe it's the Atlanta Thrasher connection, but I just right away think Kovalchuk would be really good, especially even with the amount of money they have. If you bring him in, you can still do so much more. He's absolutely nothing to your salary cap. So maybe you could see a Brandon Dillon now getting moved there, and then you bring in a top forward who's a UFA at the end of the year.
Like Kreider.
A Kreider.
I think you just found another suitor for a Chris Kreider.
Yeah, exactly. Who I'm sure Winnipeg was already in talks for them. So now they just have beyond.
And
options.
If you think about it too, anything. The last couple years, the last 2 deadlines in a row, Winnipeg gone out and traded for a center. Last year, Kevin Hayes. And the year before that, Stastny. So do they now look at Pajot from Ottawa as maybe a second line replacement for Little to shore up that center core?
Yeah, you never know. Like I said, we didn't have time to.
We just saw it before we started.
I don't even know off the top of my head options. I think Brandon Dillon has been linked there quite a bit. I could definitely see that. I don't even know right off the top of my head who to think about that could end up winding up there. Maybe they take on a Louis Eriksson. You never know. But we'll keep going down the list. Karlsson, again, that's also fresh, but it's not really. I mean, it sucks that he's out the rest of the year.
Yeah, I don't think it changes what San Jose was going to do. I don't think it makes them buyers now. I don't necessarily make them sellers now either, because like we discussed a few weeks ago, there's nothing really to sell on that team besides Dillon, Marleau, and Thornton. Really, those are your only 3 trade chips. So if that was the plan, I don't think the Karlsson injury deviates from that plan.
Yeah. Columbus they were having an unreal year, but they've been hit pretty hard with injury bugs. Korpisalo went down earlier this year, and then now it comes out that Cam Atkinson is out 2 to 3 weeks, and Seth Jones is out 8 to 10 weeks because he had surgery. So that's a major problem for them, considering how hard they've been pushing for those final playoff spots. Do you see them making any moves? Because, their GM isn't shy.
What do they have to move now? They kind of went all in last year.
They don't have the picks, really, because of what they gave up last year.
They don't have those real high-end prospects. No. Most of their high-end prospects are on the team now. And I don't think you're moving out roster players to bring in roster players.
No.
Well, I don't know. It's tough because, Seth Jones is probably your best or second best defenseman. I would say best. Let's say Zach Renski's probably their second best. And Cam Atkinson's probably one of their best goal scorers on the team. And it's hard.
Forward does it all.
And it's hard to replace those two things because they're big parts of your team. And there's nothing really out there to necessarily fully replace those two. But like I said, the Gigi Pajot's out there. That wouldn't be. He's scoring at a pretty good pace. So you're not getting the Cam Atkinson play, but you're getting the points producing on the back end. Though there's no D out there in my mind that compares to Seth Jones. It's worth trading. Like, I mean, if you really think you have a chance for, like, to really go deep this year, then yeah, go for it. But I think Columbus would be fine if trading for maybe, like, a Dylan or maybe, like, a Brandon Montour, like, not a superstar, but, like, a second pairing guy that can play with Zach Werenski on that first pairing. Maybe not log as many minutes as Jones, but just keep Columbus in the hunt.
Because they've had, like... I find to me it's very underrated. They've had probably one of the best young D-cores, at least top 4.
Yeah.
Of the last couple of years. I
think their oldest defenseman is David Savard, and I think he's not even 30 yet.
No, and then you have him, and you have Murray, and you have Werenski, and you had Jones, and just like
Nudavara.
Yeah, like when you put together that D group, people are shocked at how good they are. But when you look at that D group, like it's a young, strong D-core that they just dominate. I
don't think any of them are under 6'1" either.
No,
I think they're all big guys.
Yeah, but going back to Winnipeg, I was thinking you could always get Matt Dumba with the amount of cap space you have now and the problems that they have on D. Why not go for a Matt Dumba? I mean, you're obviously going to have to give something to get something.
Yeah.
But
don't say that. Toronto needs Matt Dumba.
No, they don't. All right, we'll move on to probably the most well-known injury is Connor McJesus is out 2 to 3 weeks. Is this the Oilers season right here? Is this it? These 2 to 3 weeks? Are they going to flop to the point of they can't do anything else?
I don't think it's necessarily the Oilers season. I think it's Draisaitl season. Because I think this is the time. Because you always just like doing a comparable here. When Crosby was always out for the Penguins, Malkin shines.
It's statistically proven.
Goes
he plays
way
his
up
best.
in everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is. And if I'm Dave Tippett, the coach, I'm going right to Draisaitl and saying, as long as Connor's out, this is your time to take this team and really cement this in the playoff picture. And Draisaitl can do it. Draisaitl is a top 10 player in the league.
Mm-hmm.
I think he can do it. Does Edmonton need to trade for a top 6 forward at this point in the year? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that is, I keep bringing up Pajot because I really think he's one of him, Kreider, even Kerfoot in Toronto, depending on what a deal would look like there. Like Toronto would obviously want maybe a defenseman back, depending on what one. Mm-hmm. But I think Kerfoot would be a good option. But I really think they really need to start looking at that extra top 6 forward to help them out with that last little stretch. Because right now the line of Nugent Hopkins,
who's been playing great.
He's been playing great since he moved to the left wing.
Yeah.
Kailer Yamamoto on the right side and Draisaitl on the middle. That line has been lethal lately, probably one of the best in the last month. Mm-hmm. So I think if you just had one more top 6 forward for Connor's line when he comes back to play with him and Zach Cassian, more of a shooter like a Pajot would be. He wouldn't be dependent on to dominate the play, just be dependent on to shoot the puck. Mm-hmm. I think that could really help Edmonton, but for right now it's Draisaitl's team. And he's going to have to bulldoze them into the playoffs.
Now, if you're we'll go to this since you brought up. If you're Ottawa, do you trade Pajot and get what you can get? Or do you say, listen, we need players. Like, they need some guys.
I think he's going to want too much for what they think he's worth. I think he's having too good of a year.
But they don't have anybody else to pay. Like, you have to ice a team. You have to have some good players.
Yeah.
And if they're doing this big rebuild, you're going to need guys in a couple of years who've been through it and who've been with the franchise for a long time. So yeah, he might fetch you a decent return, but at some point you need players that have been around and players that are like good. That's the thing. Like, I like the move early in the year when they brought Nemestikov in.
Yeah.
Because Nemestikov, he needed a change. He came in, he's having an okay year now, but he started off really strong.
White hot with them.
He was super, super hot when he first started. And in 2-3 years, if he stays, he has a fairly decent, expensively, it's in the middle of contract. I think it's a little higher than that. I think it's 3-something.
Okay.
Could be wrong, but it's expensive for a player like that, but they don't have anybody else to pay. They're going to need players down the line. You can't just have all these young guys in the lineup. So at what point is the value above what it's worth to keep him?
I don't think you're getting a first for him.
No, I don't think you're getting anything than a low second.
I think it's probably a second and like a B-level prospect,
Mm-hmm.
depending on the team and how desperate they are. Like, I really can't see... Like, it all depends on what Pierre Dorian has planned. If he thinks... See, we don't know what Peugeot's asking for.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with guys in contracts here. Because most guys get signed to that big contract after they've had a 30-goal season or like a 50-assist season, and they come back and they never reach that again, and you're paying them $5 million plus a year.
That's the thing. Like I'm saying, like there has to be somebody on that team to do something. And last year it was Ryan Dzingel, and Ryan Dzingel has an unreal season, gets traded to Columbus and doesn't do anything.
No.
And then gets signed this year and hasn't really done anything.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like somebody has to be good on that team, and why not keep him to be that good player? Pay him. Maybe you have to overpay him a little bit, but right now you don't have any money. Like you don't have any big contracts, right? So why not throw?
I would be on the side of keeping him because I just think he's a good guy to have in the locker room, probably, and guys probably like him. But at the end of the day, it is a business, and if you think you can get something that's going to help your team when you're ready to compete, then yeah, do it. But if he's asking, I think it all comes down to term with me for him. Like, I would definitely sign, like, I'd give him $5 million a year if he asked for, like, 3 or 4 years. But if he's looking for anything more, then the price is going to have to come down, right? I don't know. He's probably the one that I can see easily moving and easily staying. I know I bring him up as a lot of time moving the past couple minutes, but he is 50-50 for me.
That's the thing, like, we're talking about it. We're all over the place today, but for Kreider, I think they're just going to sign him. I don't think they're going to move him. I really think he's going to re-sign, and it's going to be very soon, like within the next day to 2 days, because the trade deadline's coming up a week from tomorrow.
A week from Monday.
Sorry, I'm thinking it's Sunday. Yeah, a week from Monday. So I think within the next 2-3 days he'll be signed, and then they can just get rid of all this trade talk because he's been spoken about to death. And the way the Rangers are, they like their players. They don't usually move on from players, especially someone who's been. Well,
they have a lot recently.
Yeah, in the rebuild, but like history wise,
yeah,
and they've been doing so well this year compared to what a lot of people thought they would, and they're in a playoff hunt right now. So I think they're gonna keep him and sign him again.
I think he's going.
You really do?
I think they have enough young players where by next year rolls around, they won't really even not remember him, but like they won't need him as bad as they thought they did. And I think you could get a first for Kreider. Like, I think Boston would be easily willing to give their first-round pick for Kreider.
I could see Dallas doing it, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. You never know. Like, we'll see when time comes. We got to, say, a week and a half, roughly.
Yeah.
But
there's going to be so many rumors for the next 9 days. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah. And then we'll jump into Shea Weber. That was a weird situation. Originally, it comes out that Shea Weber is done for the year and his career might be in jeopardy. And then it comes out later on that, no, he's only out minimum 4 weeks. But his career isn't in jeopardy. I feel like it was probably a bad leak. I mean, it was probably a bad source when you think about it. I don't know. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if his career was in jeopardy. I mean, he is having problems with the same ankle that he had surgery on a year and a half ago, where he missed all that time. So I feel like any injury to that ankle can be career threatening. I think maybe they jumped the gun on saying it was career ending, or it was taken in a different context from what they were saying. But I don't know, like people were saying, I didn't think he was getting moved to begin with, because that salary is so big that he probably couldn't do it unless somebody really wanted him. But this definitely is the end of Montreal season right here.
Do you think?
Yeah, minimum a month when he's been so dominant for them this year. I mean, they've been having a pretty rough year as it is, but I think this is the final nail in the coffin.
I wouldn't say it's the final nail. I say it's probably the nail's there. I wouldn't say it's hammered in because you don't know what Bergevin's going to do. You could easily go out. I think they have the assets to trade for a defenseman. Not a full replacement for Shea Weber, but a comparable, like a Josh Manson, who's a real defensive guy. Or even go out and shoot a big shot with Rasmus Ristolainen and see if you can regurgitate what he used to be able to be, what he used to be in Buffalo compared to now.
Because him and Jason Botterill and Bergeron have a history. So
yeah,
with the Scandella deal.
So I wouldn't count them out because you don't really know what Montreal's going to do because they're on the fringe right now. They're Well, they're 5 games back of a wild card spot, which is a lot at this time of the year. But you don't know what's going to happen to the other teams.
Yeah, we're talking about all these injuries. Anybody can get injured.
Well, Columbus holds the second wild card spot right now. 2 of their better players are out.
Yeah,
that could be the end of their season right there if Columbus decides not to make a move. So I don't think it's the end for Montreal, but it's definitely looking like with the injury. And to have that leak out that it's career, did Weber find out from the leak or did someone tell him and then it got out? Because I thought I heard that he found out when it was out on Twitter.
He found out through the media, yeah. Because it came right out pretty much instantly that when they said he was out, it was career ending.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
That's tough to hear.
Yeah, because,
when you have no clue what's going on about your ankle, and then you just see it on Twitter, it's like, Shea Weber is probably done for his entire career. And he's like, what? So that's a little bit tough. I think the way teams report injuries has to change a little bit. I think a little bit has to be less told to the media because the media has no reason to know. Like, all they have to know is this guy's not going to play. He's hurt. He'll be back when he's back. But I understand there's an obligation that the league has set out for the teams to the media relationship and all that stuff. But for something like that, like a career-ending injury to leak out that's not career-ending is super negligent by whoever leaked it.
Well, you never know. It might have been just Montreal testing who they have for, like, getting things out there, right?
Yeah.
They might have been... It's going to sound stupid to say, but when Kim Kardashian was having her baby, she told 4 different people 4 different names. And then it got out to the media, and it was her seeing who she could trust.
Oh, okay.
So that might have been the kind of situation that Montreal was doing. They told different things to all the reporters to see who the leak was. Because obviously you have people in your system and close around you that tell things to the media, but some people might be going a little too far. And they might have thought that, and then they had to figure out who it was. And that might have ended up being the situation where you have a bad reporter or someone in your system who says too many things or things not the way you want it to be, and then this is just the way they do it, and that's how it gets out there.
Yeah.
You never know. Maybe, like I said, it could have been just the way it was said wasn't interpreted correctly. Like I said, maybe because this is the same ankle that he had surgery on, it could be career-ending because of the complications.
Yeah.
But it wasn't interpreted that way. You don't know, right? It could have been through text. It could have been through a burner account to another account, right?
Yeah.
So you don't know the situation until it comes out. But either way, that's pretty shitty to hear that way.
To find out that way, yeah.
Because that means if you found out that way, that means your family found out that way. And if you don't know what's going on and they're trying to contact you to figure what's going on, then it just becomes a shitstorm.
Yeah.
And it can be pretty serious for the organization as well if that's out there and it's not the case. Because it can just ruin any reputation that they can have, right?
Yeah.
But we'll keep going. One of your favorite players, former Leaf, Nazem Kadri's out 4 to 6 weeks now. That's a huge blow to Colorado, who's been completely buzzing lately. That's their second line center, gone for a while, and now Kadri's been having a really good year. His goals were up this year from last year, which that'll happen when you go from third to second line, and he's playing with really great players. And I think it's really shitty because for one, you don't want to see anybody get hurt, but for two, I had them as my playoff. Like my Stanley Cup winner.
I have them.
Obviously, it doesn't.
I have them making I have them making the finals. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, that doesn't affect it, but you want obviously a healthy team all the way through.
Yeah.
Just to know what you have, but I think it's pretty shitty. I don't think it's going to be too detrimental to Colorado. I think they could probably pull someone up and slide in that line, but it is pretty serious.
Yeah, and I go back to him. Pajot will be a.
Yeah.
Because then that way, when you trade for a Pajot, and the reason why I mentioned him so much is because he's
versatile. He's
so versatile. You can put him on the wing at center. You can play him. I think he'd be perfect third line center for them. I really do. Play him on the second line. Second line power play, exactly. Have him on the second line when Kadri's out. Bump him down to the third line with like a JT Comfort or like a Tyson Jost. On a third line, you have that speedy third line where Comfort can throw the body too. I think that'd be an unreal top 9 for Colorado and would just add to how many people picked them to go to the finals.
Now we'll move on to, because we're talking about Leafs, Andreas Janssen, who just got back from a pretty shitty injury, is now out minimum 2 months, likely the end of the year if Toronto doesn't make the playoffs. He was in talks to be traded. It was always him and Kapanen were the two players you hear a lot about. Trade talks are obviously done unless it's somebody who wants him for next year. So, I don't know. But then they go around, they sign Pierre Engvall to a 2-year contract. He's making 1.25 now. So it's a $2.5 million contract, which is incredibly cheap for the way he's been playing.
Yeah.
Completely unreal getting called up when he did and just completely stepped in the lineup. I mean, when you have a guy who was in the minors and then jumps up and starts playing first line wing within a week of getting called up, that's pretty unreal. And I think it's a good bonus for him.
I think it shows when players come up from the minor leagues, because a lot of teams, what they'll do is, and then Toronto Maple Leafs and Toronto minor leagues do this a lot, is they play the same system
all the way through
in the NHL as they do in the AHL. So when the players can't come up, they know their role and they know what they got to do. So it makes it a lot easier for them to come in, because you see a lot of teams who maybe not run the same system in both their clubs. Player comes up and he looks completely lost because he's trying to learn a brand new system on the fly. But when you do that, it makes it a lot easier. But to get Engvall on a contract like this, like definitely a third line guy at least on a contract like that is definitely a win for Kyle Dubas.
Because you throw, just for context, if you were to put Pierre Engvall right now, if he were to get traded to Ottawa, he's a first line player.
Yeah.
They don't, or even Detroit at this point. Yes, they're bottom teams, but if you give him the opportunity to play first line, which Toronto has done, it wouldn't be a bad thing. And I know they obviously want to keep him, but if I'm a team like someone who's kind of up and coming, like someone,
I think he moves up now to the first line with Matthews and Marner to substitute Janssen. I think he's a great candidate to move up.
Yeah, I'm definitely, if I'm a GM, I know he just signed his contract, but even before then, I would have been looking at a player like him as someone you could kind of easily snag from a team like that, who has so many good young players, and just like we talk about, the Marlies have their top 2 lines are players who can play in the NHL.
Yeah.
So it's I wouldn't be surprised, because we're talking about players that need to move out of Toronto for defensemen to come in. They have these vast amount of forwards, so you can easily snag any of these guys from them and use them in your lineup. Like Kenny Agostino, who played last year with Montreal and then New Jersey. He played really great on a really bad New Jersey team, and I'm surprised. I knew we didn't have the room to re-sign him, and that's why we didn't. But I'm surprised that he took going to Toronto. Now, he's on a one-way contract, so he's getting paid either way.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised that he took the Marlies for a fringe fourth-line spot with the Maple Leafs over somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know what other offers he had.
Not a lot.
I guess not, but still, like, he's a player that anybody, if you're going on a deep playoff run, you can pick him
I know
up.
you're playing in the American League, but it's not like he's in Ontario, California.
That's pretty nice.
He's still, but you know what I mean? He's not in a small town in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, he's downtown
Toronto. He's across the street.
He's across the street from the Scotiabank Arena.
Yeah.
So he's still living in the big city. He's getting paid his money. So I don't think it's all bad. And the Marlies I think they're a top 5 team in the American League right now. I'm pretty sure.
No, they've been dropping.
They won the last couple games. I'm not sure what the
before then. From the time that Sheldon Keefe got called up to the big leagues,
they struggled a little bit. Yeah,
they struggled for quite a while, for about a month and a half.
Yeah, but they're starting to pick it up. Well, they're one of the top teams still, because when he left, I think Marlies only had like 5 regulation losses when Sheldon Keefe left. So they've been picking up lately. But he's playing top 6 minutes. He's been killing it for them. So it's not all sacrifice, but to me, he is an NHL player, so you're right about that. So, but with the Janssen injury, you really thought he was going to be a tipping point for any trade for defensemen. So let's say a Matt Dumba. You really thought he was going to be the main part of that, going back along with a prospect and a pick maybe. But now injury, does a team say, no, we don't want him now because he's injured, or we were going to use him for next year anyways as part of our next year plan, so it's not a big deal, we're still going to take him? That's definitely something that's got to be talked about in trade talks for sure. Because now it seems like captain. And last time I checked,
it moves.
When we go to Dumba, I'm just use Dumba because that's my number 1 choice. The last time I checked, Bill Guerin wants a 1-for-1, and it's Nylander for Dumba.
Which I know the Toronto media still hasn't gotten over the fact that what happened with the contract and the bad year he had this year, but he's been the best forward for the Leafs all year. In my eyes, he has been, with the production that he's putting out, and the amount he's already passed his career high in goals.
Yeah,
and I mean he's been given the opportunity, and he's completely.
I'd say he's been the most consistent forward, as points wise. I wouldn't say he's been the best, because you can really see him out there some nights that he's really not putting in the effort.
The last couple of games he's been struggling, but he's also had the flu.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, but even when he's out there with the flu, you can see the difference when he's on his game and when he's off his game. Like, he just brings so much to that team that obviously they need that night in, night out, right?
But obviously you can score 7 goals a game, but if you let it in 8, you're going to lose the game.
Mm-hmm.
So it really comes down to, is that worth it? And if you're asking Dubas, apparently he thinks it's not. So who knows what's going to happen? The Janssen injury definitely doesn't come at a good time.
No.
For Toronto at all. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do now.
If I'm Bill Guerin and I'm trading Matt Dumba to Toronto, if I'm still interested in Janssen, which you have a right to be, he's cost controlled, he's a great player. They're already out of it for the most part.
Yeah.
If you're taking him on, I'd say, okay, that's no problem, but you're going to have to give me something else for the rest of the year. So again, you're going to have to throw somebody else in there, whether it's just like a Kenny Agostino, or maybe you throw Pontus Aberg in there, or even you throw me a 4th-round pick, just a little something extra, because he's done for the year.
Toronto doesn't have their 1st and 3rd this year. They have everything else.
Mm-hmm. So it's the thing. And in, like you said, with Janssen out, that the trade focus all comes right down to Kapanen now.
Yeah.
Because it was pretty split, because you have 2 different players.
And Kerfoot. Kerfoot's been... Did you say Kerfoot or Kerfoot?
I say Kerfoot.
Okay, yeah. Kerfoot, he's probably... His trade likeliness is raising a little since Janssen's got hurt too. Yeah. I say those are their top 2 candidates right now to be gone by the deadline.
Who do you think is the best defenseman right now for Edmonton?
For Edmonton?
Mm-hmm.
Probably Darnell Nurse.
Well, I think they think so too, because they just signed him. So Darnell Nurse gets a nice little bridge contract, 2 years at $5.6 million. Kind of surprised in the term. I probably thought he would have been getting at least 4 years, but with how strapped they are right now for money and the way the future is, he probably wanted $7 million over 4 years, so they give him this little bridge contract to figure out what's going on.
With the cap, because you don't know how much it's going to go up or down.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's doing the same thing. Maybe he says, if I wait 2 years and the cap's over $100 million, I can get paid.
Yeah. And I think this is a really good contract for what Darnell Nurse brings to the table with his defensive play, his physical play, his offensive play. He's a complete defenseman. He's been the best defenseman pretty much right out of being drafted from his first year after playing in the OHL. Just Edmonton has gotten out of their slump of ruining prospects with Darnell Nurse, and I think he's the prime example, because they burned so many guys for so many years, and I think Darnell Nurse is the point where it tipped, to the point where they got it right with a prospect, and then they went from there, and they have their Draisaitl and McDavid, and I am happy that they locked him down, because it's been such a roller coaster with players over the last couple of years that you finally get your good defenseman and you get to keep him. And I think it's great for Edmonton. Just good contract, good cost, great player, everything just lined up.
And it kind of opens that window to, like, that cap window that they were in. It kind of opens it up a little more with that, because you're not spending so much on him that it gives you enough money to go get something else in the next couple of years. Because I think for the next 3 to 5 years is Edmonton's real chance to win.
You're going to need to bring
before guys come up and start getting their contracts, like a Evan Bouchard, a Philip Broberg, Tyler Yamamoto, like guys like that start coming up and their entry levels run out, and you're going to have to start paying those guys. I think the next 3 to 5 years is definitely Edmonton's window to get a cup.
Now, we're talking Edmonton. They're going to be out one of their first line wingers, along with their first line center. Now that Cassian got suspended 7 games for a nice, beautiful little kick in his game the other day. He had a over-the-phone meeting.
Yeah,
and
he waived his in-person
He waived the in-person, so he probably knew what was going on. He said it's not worth it.
Usually when it's in-person, it's over 5 games.
Yeah. So when he waived it, he said, listen, we'll do a conference call and take it. I thought 7 games was pretty good. I mean, Cassian is a repeat offender. He just got suspended not too long ago.
Yeah.
So 7 games for a dangerous kick, completely justified to me. I figured it was going to be 10. I thought right away it was going to be a 10-game suspension, and 7 games, not as long, but I thought it was deserving for sure.
Yeah, I think it was right. The 7 games to me is fine, and I think the whole thing could have been avoided if he didn't look Cernak dead in the face and kick him.
Yeah,
like if he looked the other way
and
it looked like he tried to get his balance back and then he kicked him, I say probably nothing would have came to it, because it'd be like, oh, he's trying to get up, and it just happened, the body was there. But when you look a guy dead in the face
while you're on your back
And
and
kick
bicycle
him.
kick him.
That's a penalty. And the problem was, it seemed to me like Cassian thought Cernak was the reason why he was on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch the video, Josh Archibald comes flying up the wing and takes them both out.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't even see Archibald because Cassian and Cernak are on top of him. And Cassian looks him dead in the face and just goes boom. And Cernak, thank God, got it in the chest protector, not in the stomach.
Mm-hmm.
And he acted like nothing really happened because, like, when you get it in the chest protector, you're not really going to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
But Cassian's lucky he didn't cut him.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll move on to the next one. Was Brandon Perlini, who got his almost nose cut off. The point, just, I don't know. To me, it was disgusting. I hate to see that kind of stuff. Really dangerous. Lucky enough for him, there was no serious damage. He didn't get anything major. Everything's in place, just some stitches to hold him together. But again, like just looking at that, like if he had got a little bit higher, could have got him in the throat, could have got right in the face.
Yeah.
And you see, like we were talking about a bunch of episodes ago about the protection with your neck and your wrists. You get a guy a little higher, or maybe you go to kick and you slide on the ice and you get him right up the throat. You could kill someone just like that instantly. That's instant murder, and it's beyond like that's. I mean, obviously, Perlini's wearing a visor, and that's just a freak accident. But it goes to show how quick or how sudden something like that can just out of nowhere happen, and just slice, boom, bleeding all over the place. Just terrible. But luckily for him, he's been having a great year ever since he came over to Detroit. So it's been great for him. I'm glad there's nothing serious with that cut. Now, Vegas now has an AHL team all of their own, which is great. They bought the San Antonio Rampage. They're moving them to Nevada, which is right next to them. They've been sharing AHL teams since they came in the league last 2 years. It now causes a problem with St. Louis, where St. Louis was using San Antonio, and now they don't have an AHL team. They haven't come to any agreements.
Well, St. Louis was they were splitting Chicago. St. Louis was using the Chicago Wolves, and so was Vegas.
Not this year.
Not this year?
Nope. St. Louis is using just solely San Antonio.
Oh, I thought they were using
Chicago is for Vegas. They split the first year, and then they went to St. Louis went to San Antonio, so they were straight in San Antonio. And that's the thing, like, people are saying because St. Louis has a history with Chicago, they might go back to Chicago since it's fairly close. St. Louis and Chicago are fairly close. But, I don't know. Now, pretty much every team bought St. Louis as an AHL team. Like, even Seattle now has an AHL team.
Yeah, this is going to be in
Palm Springs.
Palm Springs, yeah, which is not close.
It's not close. And in this day and age, I'm surprised.
I'm super surprised it's all the way in Palm Springs. Compared to where they're going to be at.
A lot of people thought it was going to be Portland because Portland.
I thought it was going to be Portland because they have two arenas there. Mm-hmm. One houses the Trailblazers, and one houses the Winterhawks.
Mm-hmm. And they were previously multiple times the Portland Pirates.
Yeah.
Who were a very successful AHL team. They were.
I wouldn't even say it's more than a 2-hour drive. Like, I don't know. I've never done that drive.
It's fairly close.
But when you look at it on Google Maps, it doesn't look like that long of a drive.
The only problem I was hearing, is Portland and Seattle have a deep sports history. They don't like each other at all. Like, it's very serious rivalry. And a lot of people thought because it's Seattle's farm team, they wouldn't support it. Like, a few years ago, do you remember when Calgary had their team in Abbotsford?
Yeah.
Abbotsford is right down.
It's right next to it's in BC.
It's by Vancouver, so a lot of people had a hard time
supporting that team because they were supporting Calgary.
Yeah, and I think they only lasted 2 years when their contract was up, and then they moved.
Yeah.
I think it was kind of a similar situation where it wasn't an NHL team, but Seattle and Portland have had this huge rivalry for so long that they maybe thought they wouldn't get the support.
Yeah.
And again, it would have also thrown off the divisions for the American League team, having a team up in Portland opposed to Palm Springs. It kind of.
And that always plays into a factor, too.
Mm-hmm. When you're trying to grow the game like that, when you have a new team, and then you have a new team for the new team, it gets the exposure going, right?
I find it hard to believe that the teams just don't have American League teams in the same state or province as them. Because I think it would make it so much easier to just have the standings the same way the NHL is, and just they don't have to be in the same city like Toronto is, but have them in the same
state or province.
Yeah, and that way you can have the same standings for the American League and the NHL. And that way players in the American League get more familiar with players. They're going to see more when they get to the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
Because I played in division with this guy for 4 years in the American League. Now we're up here together in the NHL. I don't know how this guy works. I don't know how to play against him. And I think that would elevate player development.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why some teams have, just have their teams so far.
Like Utica and Vancouver.
Like
Utica and Vancouver is the farthest.
Coasts.
They're the farthest distance between any other team.
Yeah, I think it's 2,500 miles or something like that.
Something like that. And the next longest one is Bakersfield and Edmonton, which at least is on the same coast. But that's still ridiculously long. Yeah. So, but I think the problem is, like, with some of them, some of them have been together so long, and some of them are really good. Like we talked about Utica and Vancouver.
Yeah.
Utica's is a very well run franchise, and they've been doing.
It's one of the best.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, why it's hard to step
why
away
would you get
from
rid of
someone.
something that works?
Yeah, and when you look at the way Vancouver's been trending the last couple of years with the guy they've been developing and bringing up through, you don't want to ruin anything like that. They don't have the luxury, like other really good teams at developing players are the Marlies, or Rockford, who's Chicago, Wilkes-Barre Scranton, who's the Penguins, and they like those two franchises.
And that's not that's a good vicinity for Wilkes-Barre Scranton.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good vicinity for Pittsburgh. Like, those are teams that I think it's smarter to, and I know, like we said, we just talked about the relationships of some teams, but I really think it's the best interest of the NHL club to have their American club closer. Because if you go back to the Marlies, Toronto needs a guy on Saturday night.
Yeah.
The guy gets injured right now at practice. Right now they're having practice probably.
Throws the gear over the shoulder, walks across the street.
Yeah. Grab your bag, you're going across the street.
Yeah.
It's so simple. But if Vancouver, they're playing tonight, they're going to probably have their run through in a couple hours. Guy gets hurt, they need to call somebody up on an emergency basis just in case.
Mm-hmm.
They're in Utica right now for a home game on Saturday night.
Yeah.
That guy's going to get on a plane and try to get to Vancouver.
It's going to take 4 hours maybe with checking everything in and just going.
Yeah.
You're not going to make that.
No.
You have to call somebody up a week before to make sure they're there on time. And that's the thing. Like, a lot of teams obviously are moving closer. You see teams like Carolina and Charlotte are right next to each other. And Wilkes-Barre Scranton and Pittsburgh. And then you have teams like Rochester and Buffalo.
I think Bridgeport and the Islanders are close.
If they're close, they're in the same vicinity. They're close enough. So you see teams like that.
Rochester and Buffalo.
Yeah, they're right next to each other. So it's fine. Detroit and Grand Rapids are right there. Yeah. They're both together in Michigan. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that in the future because the league is trying to grow. They're trying to cut costs. So stuff like that makes a lot more sense going into the future. And you look at teams that have been together for so long. Like Rochester's been with Buffalo for years. Rockford, Wilkes-Barre Scranton,
the San Jose Barracuda.
They're brand new,
but they're close.
But they're right there, right? And then you look like, again, Rockford has been with Chicago for so long that there's just the familiarity, right?
I actually don't remember a team before Rockford for Chicago's American League.
I think they've been there
that long.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. And I don't know, like we were talking about like Abbotsford, like I know they run Utica so well there, but why I'm sure maybe another team would slide in there, but why not just take everything that you have there and move them to Abbotsford? I know it's obviously not that easy.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's easy to move the operation, but you can't move the fans.
You can't take that fan base, and it's New York.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people. There's a lot of teams in New York. Like the New York state and area has so many American League teams.
Definitely the mecca of sports.
Yes, they have so many teams, and to have a fan base that supports you there with everything that's there, it's kind of hard to replace that, right? But that was a long topic, so we'll move on. So we're talking about the Buffalo, New York area. Zach Bogosian hits waivers and then clears waivers. So Zach Bogosian he's on the last year of his contract. He had a 7-year contract. I believe the AAV is
5.1, I think.
Yeah, the cap hit is $6 million, but the AAV is about $5 million. And there's been a lot of talks about Zach Bogosian getting moved, just even the last couple of years.
He requested a trade at the start of the year or back in December. I can't remember.
I think he's done it pretty much every year.
Yeah.
In the last 3 years. And he's one of those guys where the game is getting so fast and he's getting slower. He's only 29, but he's getting so... I don't want to say old.
I think the injuries have really made him feel old.
The game is passing him by, and it's
Yeah.
really obvious. But I mean, he's still a big defenseman. He's defensive defenseman, but he can still shoot the puck. He can still make plays. Now, clearly, nobody wanted him at that cap hit. He's a UFA at the end of this year, but even with that money, nobody wanted him. Nobody wanted to give anything, and the fact that nobody's taking him on waivers says a lot. I'd be curious to see when he hits the free agent market this year, who's going to take a run at him, unless it's somebody really desperate.
Do you think he's a PTO candidate? Do you think he even gets an offer?
I think he'll get an offer, yeah. I think somebody... Maybe this late in the year.
What ballpark are you in for him, then? If you were a GM and you needed, let's say, a sixth defenseman, he's right-handed, he can play on your third pairing, what are you offering him?
1 year, $1 million.
1 year, $1 million?
Just to try him out, see what happens.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you dump him in the minors. It's $1 million, which I know is a lot for some teams. But if you're Winnipeg, just dump him in Manitoba and go from there.
Yeah, we might be able to see him.
Yeah, we could.
Because we are going to the Rochester.
We are going to see the Rochester American. We just booked our flights and our hotel
We're
rooms.
not just going to see that. We're going to Toronto to see the Leafs and Devils play.
No,
we're going to the Marlies game in the same day.
No, we're flying to Toronto to see the Marlies and the Rochester Americans play. Don't be silly.
Yeah.
Former coach of his, I believe they coached together, Paul Maurice, signs a multi-year extension with the Winnipeg Jets. I think that's good. I mean, I think we said last episode, he's taken that team that nobody expected to really do anything with the shitty situation they were in and completely pulled them into playoff contention. And I've always liked Paul Maurice as a coach. I've always thought the way he ran the game was a really good strat. Like, he did it really strategically and great. And I'm glad to see that he got an extension. A lot of people said he was kind of like the Laviolette, where he only is good for so many years and then you got to move on. But he's showing right now that he's clearly not at that stage yet. So maybe in another year, another 2 years.
Yeah, I think it was a good move. There's really nothing to say about it other than it was a good move. They keep consistency in the locker room, and obviously the voice hasn't gone stale for the team, so good move on Cheveldale's part to keep him around for a couple more years.
Mm-hmm. Now we'll I guess we'll talk about we talked about Perlini and a seriousness, but Jay Bouwmeester the other night in Anaheim had a heart attack. You have to use the paddles on him to bring him back. Yep, they had to use all that to bring him back. He was awake and alive, obviously going to the hospital. He since then has had an implant in his chest, in his heart. So I would assume that would be the end of his career at this point, which is shitty, but he at least he's partially going out on top. I mean, he's played.
He's going out a cup. He's going out a cup champion.
At the end of the day, yeah, he's a cup champion. He's made his millions of dollars. I'm sure he's instantly going to get a front office job as soon as he retires. So I mean, it's a shitty way to go out, and I mean it's incredibly scary. But gotta say big thanks to the staff in Anaheim, the medical staff, who instantly just jumped right
great
in.
Response by them.
Yeah,
by both the Ducks
quick.
and St. Louis staff.
Yeah, and if you've seen the video, it is kind of scary. If you weren't looking,
you would
have missed.
It's scary to see the shift he played before that.
Yeah,
and then to see him on the bench, 20 seconds later, passed out.
Just
it's super scary to see that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's crappy to hear, but at the end of the day, he had a great career. He was going back. He was a highly touted prospect. A lot of people thought he was going first overall that year. He didn't end up going first overall. I think he went third or fourth. But he was such a consistent defenseman for so many years, playing 25 minutes a night on a lot of crappy Florida teams. He didn't He didn't play in the playoffs for the first 10 years of his career, and then finally he did. He moved for a little bit. He moved to a couple teams, and then we all know what happened last year, where nothing was going right with St. Louis. A day before that, almost put on waivers, and then they start their magical run. So good on that. At least he got his cup ring at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. I have nothing else to add. That was perfect.
No. And then I guess we'll move on. We got two topics that we'll include into one. Last week, Minnesota made a trade, finally getting rid of Jason Zucker, moved him to the Penguins, which isn't a surprise at all because they've been hot and horny for him since last year. The trade is Alex Galchenyuk, a 2020 first, and Kalen Addison, who was a second-round pick in 2018. Pure amazing offensive defenseman. He's over a point per game right now with Lethbridge in the WHL. I mean, to me, it's a little bit of a heavy haul. I like the trade. I think it's good. Zucker's already been playing great since he got into Pittsburgh's first couple of games. Excuse me. And he's maybe the Kalen Addison is where it's a little too much because I mean he's a top right shooting prospect.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm on Minnesota's part. I think was really great. But for a team like Pittsburgh, who's traded away so many picks and so many prospects, where their pool is so empty at this point, that I think that maybe would be a little bit of a hard pill to swallow.
I was really surprised that it was Addison and not Pierre Oliver Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised it was Addison because when, like I said, I think I've said it like probably every episode this year when we talk about the draft, is that this first round is so strong. Like this entire draft is so strong.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first 3 rounds are especially strong. So to give up a first round pick is very big this year, definitely. So I like the trade for both teams. I think this is like the first trade in a while where I think both teams made out well. Mm-hmm. So if you look at it, the Pittsburgh side, they're getting top 6 forward to replace Jake Gensel, who's been out the entire year so far and hasn't played. You get that guy who's probably going to play on Wayne Crosby and just score goals. That's all you need him to do. And then you look at the Minnesota side, they get a right-handed D prospect that's definitely going to be on their team one day.
Mm-hmm.
Another first rounder, which is always a plus in a team that's going to have to rebuild at some point. Mm-hmm. And you get a project. He's not a prospect anymore. Mm-hmm. He's a project.
This is 14
in
a couple
Alex
years.
Galchenyuk, yeah.
So, I mean,
and maybe he produced a little more playing top 6.
Yeah, you never know. Like given that opportunity, I mean, he was given the opportunity in Pittsburgh, but maybe it just wasn't the system that works for him.
And it can always be hard because people don't talk about it. It can always be really hard on the mind to play with a Malkin or Crosby because you feel the pressure to be 10 times better than you are.
You want to be on their level all the time.
All the time.
You're not,
so I
it's
think
so noticeable.
by him going to Minnesota and maybe a change of pace where he's maybe playing on a line like a Luke Kunin or a Ryan Donato, maybe it settles him a little more, saying like I can be on this level every night and I can exceed this level every night. So maybe in the end it's going to be a great trade for Minnesota where they're getting a second, third line forward for a while in Galchenyuk, a future top 4D in Addison, and you don't know what they're going to use the pick on yet.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, with Galchenyuk, his contract's up at the end of this year. So even if...
This is definitely his time to prove it.
Yeah, because now he can go out and he can... If it works in Minnesota, he can go out and get another contract with them. He can stay with them and stay kind of out of the limelight on a rebuilding team. You make your money. You kind of do what you need to do as a player. And, again, like, you can only give a guy so many chances. I understand that. And, obviously, Arizona... He wasn't in Arizona long enough because they made the Phil Kessel trade. And now he's getting... half a season, 3/4 of a season gets moved over. You're not gonna. He got a couple chances in Pittsburgh, but you're not gonna get that full level of chemistry that you'll get because he's been up and down the lineup with all the injuries and everything, right? So, is Galchenyuk going to be a 20-goal scorer, 30-goal scorer like a lot of people thought? Maybe not, but maybe you can transition his game to be an all-around player.
I think he could be 20 if you give him the right amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's all about ice time with him.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you limit it and give him power play time, he can be a 20-goal scorer, but I think if you're playing him on the second line and you got him out there on like the first unit power play, it's just way too much pressure for him.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely his time to prove it because I think if it doesn't work out for Minnesota, you're not going to see him in the NHL next year. I just don't. I know he's still young. I think he's 24 now, 23. Mm-hmm. I think he's a KHL player next year if he really doesn't prove it. Not saying that the KHL is a lesser league and less skilled. There are some really good players over there. I'm just saying that
he's a European
guy and he can go over there and make more money than he probably could in the NHL if he doesn't prove it this year.
Yeah. And even like saying like we were going back to Pajot or even like Dzingel, somebody has to score on a team.
Yeah.
So if he can figure out how to be that guy, hey, at least he's going to get himself paid.
And he's got a good shot.
Yes,
he's
always had an
with
unreal
a good shot.
Yeah. So this could be the opportunity that he needed. I know we said that before when he got moved
to Pittsburgh.
He
said this is the opportunity he needs.
But again, somebody has to score goals. This could be his chance to finally score goals. No pressure. The team's out of the playoffs. The team's going to be rebuilding. So again, like I was saying with Pajot, why not have that guy who's there, who's been in the league long enough, who knows how to play, and score your goals. But then, moving on from that, we find out today that Boudreaux got fired.
Well, that was yesterday.
Sorry, yesterday, yeah. I'm thinking of waking up and seeing it in our group chat. But, yeah, so that to me, it's not a shock. A lot of people thought he was going to be gone earlier in the year. I think at this point it was just a mercy killing.
Do you think when you say a shock, are you saying it was a shock because it happened this late, or you think it wasn't a shock because it had to happen?
It wasn't a shock.
Because I'm shocked by the timing.
Yeah, I'm surprised
because
they
they're
waited
7-3-1 in their last 11 games.
Mm-hmm.
They sit 3 points back for a wild card spot.
Mm-hmm.
To me, to fire a coach at that point in this point of the season is kind of ridiculous. If you were going to fire him, it was 4 months ago, not now.
Initially, when I read that, my first thought was, I thought because the comments that Bill Guerin made when Zucker got traded, he was saying, if you don't want to perform, you're gone.
If you quit.
If
you quit on the team, you're gone.
Yeah, so...
Which I kind of laughed at because 7-3-1 doesn't seem like a quitting team.
No, and my thoughts were, he's coached before. He coached a little bit in Pittsburgh, and he coached with the Islanders, and he was really good with the Islanders. A lot of, like, John Tavares said he was very disappointed that he wasn't brought back because he was a really good coach to him. And I thought immediately he was going to pull a Bob Murray and just... Sorry, Bob Murray, is he with San Jose or is he with Anaheim?
Anaheim.
He's with Anaheim. So I was thinking he was going to pull a Lou Lamoriello or a Bob Murray and jump on the bench and to see what he had and who was playing and who wasn't and who wasn't playing.
Oh, you're talking about Bill Guerin, are you?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
I thought he was going to pull a move of them and jump on the bench and see what needs to be done and who's playing it well and who he can move on from. Because I think at this point, obviously with the trade that he made for getting rid of Zucker, he's finally comfortable being in that position. He's finally realized this is his team and this is the way he can do it. And I don't think he wanted Bruce Boudreau as his coach, and he found the opportunity to do it. Now, he replaced him. His intern head coach for the rest of the year is Dean Avison. He was Boudreau's assistant coach the last 2 years, so he might just keep him the rest of the year. And then in the offseason, see who's available and make his stamp on the team with free agency and the draft and everything that he wants to do.
Yeah. Do you think they go college? Because they're in Minnesota?
They could. I was thinking maybe Bill Guerin goes with what he's a little more familiar with. Now, I'm not sure who the coach is for Wilkes-Barre Scranton. I was thinking he might go after him. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Mm-hmm. But he's...
What's the connection there?
Bill Guerin was an associate or a senior operator with the Penguins the last couple of years before he accepted the position with Minnesota. Okay,
I thought he was somewhere else. Sorry about that.
He might have been recently, but he was...
You could be right.
He was with Pittsburgh for a decent number of years.
I didn't even know who Bill Guerin was. I heard of the name, but I didn't even know who he was until he was hired by Minnesota.
You didn't know that he played in the NHL for years and was an
I knew he was in the NHL. I knew he played, but I didn't know he was actually working with a team.
Yeah,
he wasn't a GM or anything like that.
He was the assistant. He filled in as an assistant coach with the Islanders, and then he was briefly a head coach with the Islanders, and then moved on. He was in the Pittsburgh system doing random things. I was thinking, immediately for people, I was thinking the Pittsburgh connection. They might try to snag an American League coach and then just let him finally get his hands in the NHL and bring him up with all these players because there's no pressure. Like a lot of people are talking about Jason Botterill in Detroit, and everybody's saying how bad they want him fired and they don't know why they would re-sign him and everything like that. Like, to me, that makes no sense. He's a young guy. They're not going to win. They know they're not going to win. They're tanking. Why not give that guy the experience? He's not put into a position to win, so why are you upset that you're not winning? Yeah. And I think that might be the case. They might try to get someone.
I think Buffalo fans are just getting impatient because at some point you got to start. Like, you're wasting away Eichel's career. I don't really know off topic, but you brought up Jason Botterill. I don't know. I honestly think they go with I think you're going to see more college coaches enter the league little by little. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be the way it goes soon because college coaches are coaching guys that are
a little more mature.
It might be better suited for those young players who are coming in because he knows how to deal with younger players rather than junior coaches or assistant coaches in the system because they're kind of dealing with way younger kids, 16 to 20, and guys who are probably at the end of their career in the American League. I think college coaches have that perfect balance of where the NHL is at, where they're so young and they're already coaching 20 to 24-year-olds and they know how to manage them. Mm-hmm. So, and especially in a Minnesota market where college hockey's massive in there.
And I mean, Minnesota is the hockey state.
Yeah. So I really think they explore the college option in the summer, especially Bill Guerin being a newer GM, wanting to bring a newer brand in and just maybe like a name that nobody knows and nobody can attach anything to yet. Yeah. I'm just surprised that he fired him now and just didn't, because I'm pretty sure his contract was up this year in the summer.
It was this year,
Or
or he had one more year.
Maybe one more, but it wasn't past next summer.
No.
So I'm surprised he just didn't leave it till the summer. Because by the Zucker trade, to me, they're not trying to make the play.
No, that shows that
they're
they've
trying
accepted.
to play, but they're trying to accept the fact that they probably won't make it.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you just let Bruce Boudreau finish out the year, and if he makes it, plus if he doesn't, well, we traded away a top 6 forward. What are you gonna do?
Mm-hmm.
And then just say, listen, Bruce, we're gonna let you go now in the summer. Start fresh with the draft and free agency with a new coach and a new system, and start then. But with 30 games left in the season, or 30, 20 games, 25 games left
Most
in the
teams are
season.
at about the 50 game mark.
For players to start learning a new system, I'm sure the system's not going to change too much that they play, but to have a new coach in the locker room for 20 games, like, are they going to be paying attention that much to an assistant coach that's probably not going to be their head coach?
No.
So, like, I don't know. I was not surprised he was fired, but I'm surprised at the timing he was fired.
Yeah. No, I can agree with you on that one. Now, just looking at our notes here, I did miss one with the injuries. Casey Cizikas with the Islanders. He's out 3 to 4 weeks. I don't know if I mentioned that because I have Atkinson and then him and then Jones, and I put
There's so many
Jones together.
Yeah, there's so many injuries.
Yeah, so just throwing that one out there. That's all I have from like our group notes. Now, you had notes yourself. Do you want to bring them up or do you want to save them?
What are we at right now for time?
We are at 56 minutes.
Yeah, we can do them. I guess they're quick. They're not like we don't have deep discussions about them, but yeah, sure. So, I have like just 3 extra ones that I thought of. So, the first one I was thinking, we're getting close to the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Draft talk is going to escalate every week coming in the next couple weeks. So, who do you think out of the bottom 5 teams in the standings needs? We're going to say Alexi Lafreniere because I can't see anyone else going number 1. Who do you think needs him the most? So, out of Detroit, LA, Ottawa, New Jersey, and Anaheim. Who needs number 1 the most, in your opinion?
I mean, obviously Ottawa, because...
And if you go with Ottawa, you're doubling your chances because now Ottawa's listed to have the 3rd and the 6th pick as of today in the standings.
Now, a lot of people, like, obviously Detroit's tanking. I think Detroit, I've said it since the start of the year, I think Detroit's going to get screwed over at the draft. I think they're going to fall. I think they're going to fall at, like, 4th.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're going to get the first overall pick.
Yeah.
Which... They don't necessarily need it. They have such a rich prospect pool of all these great young guys. It'll just add. That's why
they're definitely trying to put themselves over the top.
Yeah, you're in the position. Why not take it?
Yeah.
To get a player like who could be an elite generational player. I mean, he's been talked about since he's been 14 years old. You hear about that every year, but I'm thinking back.
He's a top 6 forward coming into next year.
Yeah, depending on where he plays. But if he plays. Like, I say Ottawa because Ottawa's going through so much crap right now. Like, I really think they could use him right away, but I don't know if he would make a big enough difference right away.
Yeah.
So, I think Ottawa needs him the most, but to help them, because Ottawa, I don't think is a quick turnaround. Like, Detroit, I think in 2 years is going to be a strong team. With the amount of young players they have coming up, they could definitely be a strong team.
So you're going with Detroit?
No,
You're going to stay with Ottawa?
No, I'm going with LA.
Okay.
I think LA.
So you took my pick.
Sorry,
so we agree on it.
Sorry,
yeah.
I think LA is definitely in the position because they have so many old, slow, expensive guys.
I think if they get the first pick, it's the perfect time to start out the old generation and start the new with Lafreniere. I think it's the perfect draft for them to get the first overall pick.
I think it's the most suitable position. Like I think Ottawa needs him the most, but the most suitable.
I think LA needs him the most to market something.
That's true, yeah.
To bring in the national attention.
Yeah.
Because people in California probably don't know a lot about Alexi Lafreniere. Like, we know about him because he plays in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. That's league enough that we live in. And we know a lot about him, and we keep track of all this.
We watch the World Juniors. We watch them kill the World Juniors.
But guys, and people in California, like the casual hockey fans in California, probably don't know a lot about him and don't know how much of an impact player he can be. And I'm thinking of a line with Kopitar and Lafreniere next year, and I'm just... To me, that's a pretty good line starting out.
You have Kopitar with big body just completely tearing through the ice, feeding the puck to Lafreniere.
It is LA for me, who I think who needs it the most, and definitely, honestly, deserves them a little bit. Because they're not... You can tell they're not tanking, but like they just don't have a team.
They're trying so hard, and they're just spinning in the mud.
Yeah.
They're not going anywhere with the team that they have.
Yeah. Okay, so the second one I had was... renaming the trophies that are given out. So the NHL awards right now, you think of the Hart, the Ted Lindsay, the James Norris, the Vezina, do you think they should be renamed for people our age and a little older to maybe recognize more? So, like, changing the Vezina to, like, the Brodeur, the Hart to, like, the Gretzky, the James Norris to, like, the Bobby Orr Award.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
I think deciding on the player would be a little bit tough because way back then when those awards were named, they were named after guys who stuck out so much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like because it was so small, the league, they had so many great players, but I think it was also not necessarily a lot of filler, but you can look back at teams from the original 6 era and you'll say, I have no idea who that guy is.
Yeah.
And even guys like people who were in their 50s and 60s who watched enough hockey even after the first expansion will say, I don't know some of these guys. I've never heard of them. So I think there's guys that stick out so much. Like George Vezina is who the Vezina is named after. He was a goalie for the Montreal Canadiens. Yes, he wasn't like a Jacques Plante or even like a Terry Sawchuk who just dominated, but he was a very good goalie for the time. And I think keeping them would be okay because it helps with consistently.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you say, oh, Brodeur won 4 Vezinas, and then you say, well, Carey Price won 3 Brodeur awards, it's kind of like...
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. I could see some of them, like, I couldn't see the Vezina changing. I think the Vezina's fine the way it is. The William Jennings Award, which is for the goalies who have the lowest goals against average with at least 25 games played, I think that could probably be changed.
Mm-hmm. I'm on the side of changing all of them.
You just want a fresh start?
Fresh start. Because I think, like, if you ask... I don't want to go too young. Let's say you ask, like, a 10 or 12-year-old kid. Who was Ted Lindsay? Like, could you pick Ted Lindsay out of a crowd?
Mm-hmm.
He's going to say no.
Probably not. They might know that he played for the
I know his picture, but I've never seen him play.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you change it to... If you take the Hart's the MVP. Mm-hmm. If you change it to the Wayne Gretzky Award, which I think is very fitting, because...
honestly, if you're saying the Hart, I'd pick the Marc Messier Award more than the Gretzky Award.
Would you?
Yeah, I think Marc Messier, with his leadership qualities and how he had the ability to drag teams...
Well, there is a leadership award, isn't there?
There is the Marc Messier Leadership Award, yes.
Yeah, but I'm just saying... What's the one for, like, sportsmanship?
Is that the Marc Messier? There is a Marc Messier Award, I know that. But
yeah.
I was just saying, for an example, like...
I can't think of
maybe they wouldn't want, like, 2 awards named after the same person,
yeah.
Which makes sense. But I get your point, yeah.
I just think it that way it's fresh for kids our age and younger that, like, they know these players but they never seen them play. Like, not one player on the awards I've ever seen play,
mm-hmm.
but I know most of them and I know who they are. But I really think you could change some of the main trophies, like I said, the Hart to the Gretzky. I think the Vezina to the Brodeur would be perfect because I think Marty Brodeur's been... Honestly, to me, he's the best goalie ever.
I think so, too. But then you have all those people that argue between him and then there's, you could say, Dominic Hasek, who a lot of people think is the best goalie ever. You could say Patty Waugh.
I honestly think there's no competition.
No?
No.
No.
And then I think changing the James Norris to the Bobby Orr, which it should already be already,
mm-hmm.
is perfect because Bobby Orr is the best defenseman that has ever played the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just on the side of changing them to keep it fresh and to attribute it to the younger generation, but I can understand where people kind of weary of that because the awards have been that name for so long.
The one that kind of... Naming anything after Gretzky to me is confusing because he was such an overall dominant player. Like, he obviously...
Yeah, you could name a lot of awards. Like, you could even name the Selke.
I was going to say the Rock Richard. At the moment, he has the most goals of all time. So why wouldn't you name that? But then you have to say, well, why couldn't you name something else after him, right?
Yeah.
So maybe in the future you could name the Rock Richard the Alex Ovechkin.
While we're on the awards, too, I thought about this last night. Do you, like, there's the Rock Richard, like we just said, for the most goals.
Mm-hmm.
And then the James Norris is for the best... it's supposed to be for the best defenseman, but it's become the best offensive defenseman. Mm-hmm. It's usually the defenseman with most points gets it. So do you think there should be 2 trophies added where it's the leader in assists in the overall best, like the best defensive defenseman? So keep the Norris and keep the Richard, bring in 2 more awards for an actual defensive award. So like the forwards had the Frank J. Selke.
Yeah.
So why not have a real defensive trophy for a defenseman and then also a trophy for an assist leader? Because those are 2 important factors too. It's not all just goals and points. So do you think they should add 2 more? Because I think they should.
I think I think you should rework the Norris. I think the Norris should be not reworked as the best defensive defenseman, but the best overall sound defenseman.
So taking in points, plus minus, time on ice, defensive prowess, everything.
Yeah, everything like that. But then if you are gonna implement a new one, maybe you can give it to the top offensive defenseman.
Yeah.
Where
So keep the Norris and
keep the Norris,
alter that to the
rework
defensive side, and then make a new trophy for an offensive defenseman.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Because to me, like when Brent Burns is winning the Norris, I don't necessarily agree with that. Like, yes, he's an under.
Brent Burns used to be a right winger.
Yeah, I more think of it as like a Duncan Keith, where Duncan Keith was obviously an offensive defenseman, but he knew how to shut players down and play defensively.
Yeah, I think Gio winning it last year was a good example of what the trophy actually is.
Yeah.
And same this year with John Carlson, I think that's an also good example, because yes, they're both getting points, but they're the biggest part of their team's defense, which I think it has to be taken into consideration. But I think the years before that, it's really become who has the most points in the back end. But I really think they need to have two separate trophies for the defenseman. And like I said, adding an assist trophy too. Because assists are why the guys score goals.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just a little trophy talk. Because that's coming up too. You're going to start seeing people put their ballots in for that and everything. And giving their 2 cents about that. And the last thing I had, we're not even close to it, but it's free agency. Do you think that the NHL free agency should have a moratorium period? And for those of you who don't know what a moratorium period is, the NBA currently has it, and it's days where contracts are agreed upon in talk, but not on paper. And it's also a time for teams to sign their rookies and restricted free agents. It's a 3 to 5 day. I can't remember if it's 3 or 5 days, but it's that process to get your rookies RFA signed and agree to a principal contract with UFAs. So do you think the NHL should have that?
Yeah, I don't like the way that the NHL does it, because I feel like it feels very rushed, because you have, obviously now where you can negotiate through the season, that makes your UFAs a lot easier, but it can be hard to really map out what you have going to the next season when you only have a couple days. So I think it should be broken down, because you have the drafts, and then I think you should work on your RFAs and then have the opportunity to work with your UFAs. I don't think it should be together.
NBA signings can take place from July 1st to 5th, but they do not become official till the 6th.
Yeah.
So do you think the NHL should follow that exact same timeline?
Yes.
Free agency opens on the 1st, and that's the moratorium period. You get your RFAs and rookies signed, if you were signing any, till the 5th. And you agree to principle with UFAs. But then the 6th, they actually sign the contract and make it official.
Yeah.
Now, this has brought up problems in the NBA. For those who don't know, DeAndre Jordan, a center for the LA Clippers, was going to sign a deal with the Dallas Mavericks, but then backed out at the last second during the moratorium to go back to the Clippers.
Yeah.
So that's where you can see the other edge of the sword, where teams don't want to agree to a contract with a guy and say, we already spent this money, so we can't go get this guy. But then the guy backs out the day before, and you can't go get your second choice because he's already signed to another team. So you can see the double-edged sword with this, but I really think it's helpful for teams to really map out their whole season.
I think, yeah, if you're going to implement that, I think you'd have to put something along with it, like, as soon as you agree on that contract, it goes sent to the league, and as soon as it's sent to the league, there's no going back.
Yeah.
If you sign that contract, whether it comes out yet or not, it gets sent away to the league, and they say, okay, this is ready to go. As soon as it can go, it goes. Yeah. You can't back out once that pen is to paper.
Well, that's just it. They're not signing anything during the moratorium. There's no signing. It's all within speech. That's the whole point of the moratorium. So
that's what I mean. If you're going to do that, you'd need to implement on the day before. If you're ready, you sign that contract, and then the next day is when it comes out. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you
it's
have
kind of
that
altering it a little bit. That's not the point of it. That's kind of just making free agency a little bit longer.
But I think if you're going to put that there has to be an agreement, so guys can't flake on.
Well, that's the whole point. It's a verbal agreement, and that's where you see. That's what I'm saying. The double-edged sword. So you're bringing up the point why it technically shouldn't happen, is because you'll get scared that some guys can say, yeah, I'll sign out your team, and then 2 days later, well, this team's offering me like $20,000 more.
Yeah.
So I might as well just go there, right? And I haven't signed anything for you, so I don't even have to tell you. So I don't know. I can see the both sides of it. I'm probably on the fence of it. I just thought it through my head. I would probably like it just for the fact that it gives teams a couple extra days with how RFA offer sheets are probably could have gone more apparent. Gives them a couple more days to work in those deals that they really want to get done. But for the UFA side, it'd be tough if they added a moratorium period. Yeah, for sure. That's all I have for little extra topics.
All right. Do you have any other banter you want to throw at me?
Yeah, I had a problem with something I saw this week. I
Mm-hmm.
was on Instagram and I seen that. I don't know who initially released it, but the flight pattern and the audio of the helicopter that Kobe Bryant died in, the helicopter crash, was released. And to me, that was terrible. Because who would want to listen to something like that? I can't think of a person like right in their mind would actually want to listen to a helicopter crashing. And I didn't even listen to it. I seen the title popped up and I immediately got, because I did not even want to hear the start of it. And it just, to me, that was so insensitive. And also how the funeral was released, how it's saying they were buried on the 7th and everything. Leave that within the family. They said they wanted this to be private, and now all this stuff is getting put out there, and it's not becoming very private anymore.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm really upset that someone actually had the nerve to put up audio of a helicopter crashing with kids in it.
It's anything to be famous, right? People they just want to get likes and shares and anything. Like, they just...
Yeah, it's just disappointing the way someone would actually see that as a chance to get likes.
Yeah. On that, do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, I'm all done with that.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you when we see you.